There have been scenes of devastation from Venezuela after two powerful earthquakes struck the country on a national holiday when most people were at home. The government says 188 people are known to have died, but experts fear that number could rise into the thousands as the extent of the damage becomes clear. This is the scene in Caracas right now, where rescuers have been searching through the rubble, where people have been heard calling for help. The epicentre of the earthquakes was to the west of the capital, Caracas, and the port city of La Guaria, just north of Caracas, is the worst affected area, with dozens of collapsed buildings. Shaking and tremors were felt across the north of the country. Vanessa Silva, the BBC's producer who's based in Caracas, now reports.
The earthquake hit Venezuela early in the evening. Two massive quakes registering 7.2 and 7.5 in magnitude. Inside Bolivar International Airport, the powerful quakes are minutes apart. The worst affected, La Guaira, north of Caracas, building flattened, authorities calling it disaster zone. This is what was left of the 10-story Hotel Eduardo. Residents racing to get out of their buildings anywhere that was safe.
We went downstairs. The scene was like a horror movie. We had to climb over the rubble, the building superintendent with the baby and all the neighbours coming down. But from that building, I only saw that one family got out.
That thing was moving all over the place. We just bolted. Everything in the house got smashed. It's all a total mess now.
We are in the municipality of Chacao, here in the city of Caracas, one of the worst affected by the two earthquakes that hit Venezuela on Wednesday. We can see the rescue laborers on this building, along this area, many buildings with cracks on the walls. This is a residential area, this is a commercial zone too. A lot of restaurants work here. Emergency services were deployed to deal with the disaster, frantically trying to get to survivors buried underneath the concrete and rubble. People searching for loved ones, calling out their names, desperate for any news. As the search and rescue operations continued, the grim task of recovering bodies began. But survivors were pulled from the wreckage.
Debo informar que el estado más afectado.
I must inform you that the hardest hit state by this unprecedented seismic event is the state of La Guaira. There are tens of collapsed buildings and we're working hard to save as many lives as God allows us.
The United Nations says there is indication of significant loss of life.
I just want to know where my son is, whether he's trapped or at a shelter. I'm desperate. The governor said they were going to send heavy machinery, but look what time it is. They still haven't arrived. It's only the neighbours here helping.
Last night, Venezuelans were celebrating a national holiday together. Now they are having to deal with the country's worst natural disaster in over 25 years. Vanessa Silva, BBC News.
Well, the earthquakes were powerful and happened within 40 seconds of each other, measuring 7.2 and 7.5 in magnitude. The second earthquake was the strongest to hit Venezuela in more than 100 years. Both quakes were very shallow, meaning their effect on the ground was more intense and caused more damage. Our science correspondent Pallab Ghosh explains.
Concrete and steel torn apart in seconds, apartment blocks razed to the ground, and a city left devastated. But what makes a quake this destructive? The answer lies in three things: where it struck, how deep it was, and what was built on top. The earthquakes were right on the boundary of where the Caribbean and South American plates slide alongside each other. It was a sudden rupture along this boundary west of Caracas that unleashed the shocks. The first measured 7.2 on the magnitude scale, quickly followed by the second at 7.5. That seems like a small increase, but actually released 3 times the energy. These are both big shocks. The earthquake in Myanmar in March last year was 7.7 and led to the death of more than 5,400 people. The Venezuela shocks were relatively shallow at around 10 kilometres below the surface. These cause more damage because there's less distance between the energy release and the buildings on the surface.
The earthquakes here are shallow typically, and that does mean that they do a lot more damage because, well, it's just the distance between the earthquake and the surface where the people are. So if you're only 10 kilometres deep, you expect a lot more damage than you do if you're 50 kilometres deep.
After a deadly quake in Caracas in 1967, the government began bringing in earthquake building codes, tightened sharply in recent decades. So the capital's most recently built tower blocks are engineered to withstand a quake like this. But the problem is 2/3 of the people who live in Caracas live in buildings not built to these standards. There have been several smaller aftershocks, and there are likely to be many more in the coming days and weeks. Pallab, Ghosh, BBC News.
The earthquake was felt as far afield as Bogotá in neighbouring Colombia. Our Latin America correspondent Will Grant is in Bogotá for us. And Will, you've reported a lot from Caracas and you know the country well. This earthquake comes after some very turbulent times for Venezuela, doesn't it?
Yes, it certainly does. I mean, it was only 2013 that the charismatic socialist leader Hugo Chavez died. And after that, there was everything from hyperinflation to the economic crash of the oil-rich nation to an exodus of young people. Between 20 and 25% of Venezuelans fled the country. That affects things like firefighting teams, hospital teams. After that, of course, let's come to this year. There were airstrikes in Caracas by Washington. The then President Nicolas Maduro removed from power at gunpoint in his pajamas. To say it's been tumultuous is an understatement, and now this. What has been interesting, and I think this is really the first test of the new relationship between the Delcy Rodriquez regime and the Trump administration, that the first nation she said had offered help was the United States, with $150 million and teams of rescue workers flying in from Los Angeles and Florida.